Dan Hasty.
Very cool.
Tasty Dan Hasty.
It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. Luke coming to us from, I can only assume, the North Pole based on how he's dressed. How are you, Luke?
Terrific. This is a long sleeve thermal, as I said before we got going, predominantly used for outdoor winter sports such as skiing and or snowboarding, and I am wearing it on an 81 degree day this Monday afternoon. So it's sunny and 81 here in Illinois. I'm back home visiting the folks and some friends, and I'm thin blended. What can I tell you? Your blood starts to thin when you live in Florida.
Man moves to Florida and instantly becomes a Florida man. Mm-hmm. Can't handle the northern cold. I'm Alex Freeman. I don't know if I said that as we came into the show. This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. We're excited to be here. Last time we did a show, we were at 499 home runs. We are now at 501, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And did you see, I think today on Tiger's Twitter, someone stole the 5 from Miguel's. So right now, if you look, I think it says it's 401. So if anyone is in downtown Detroit, see someone walking around with a large green 5 sign, stop that person and return it to Comerica Park immediately.
Because everybody knows that counter is the official number. So if we don't get that 5 back, Miggy's got to hit 99 more.
Yes, it's got to go all the way. Then imagine if someone steals the 4. He's just at 1 home run, has to start all over again.
Might as well go back to the Marlins. That's
exactly. I think the one thing that was funny, I know we're going to talk about the whole Miggy thing here in a second. It was cool that they did that ceremony for him the other day. You know, I obviously know he hit 500 on the road in Toronto. And first of all, and I know we'll talk about the Miggy thing in a second, but shout out to the Toronto fans for being really cool and very classy and giving him that time. I know it was later in the ball game, tied the game up. Toronto definitely still fighting for a playoff spot, but it was cool that everyone could kind of like take a moment to step back and be like, we just witnessed history and greatness. So kudos to all the fans, Tigers and Toronto.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because I know Tigers fans have been, and I among them, a little bit disappointed in like the way in which wider baseball has not celebrated this milestone. But it was a great tribute to the fans in Toronto that in the midst of a game they did take that time to recognize the history and the greatness of Miguel Correa as a hitter. Yeah. You obviously never want to see it come against your team, but at the same time, when you see history, and you got to acknowledge it as you have it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it was a really cool moment, like to kind of put the game aside for a second and just respect the player and everything that he's done. And Miggy's a first ballot Hall of Famer, so it was cool to see him get his moment. He's had many moments, but definitely deserved that one. For a second, the one thing I was going to say was it was just funny when they did the home unveiling of the sign to 500. His family did it, his wife and his children, which was awesome. But it was funny because they just changed it to 500 at first, and I think they left up there for like a half inning. And like my OCD was kicking, or I was like ticking. I was like, there should be one more up there. He demolished a ball to Big Mac Land last weekend in St. Louis, and then I think after a half inning or whatever, they officially updated the count, the correct. The correct score of it all being the 501. So yeah, it's great. Miggy,
you had to give people the time to take the picture for the gram.
Absolutely. It was
if
funny.
It wasn't on the Instagram. It doesn't count. Similar to if the 5 doesn't get returned, if nobody had posted a picture of 500 on Instagram, the rules of baseball are such that it wouldn't have counted.
Yep. Rob Manfred is going to personally scratch out 501 and notate that it's 401, and Miggy will have to start all over. It was it was great. It was great. I know we'll talk about the whole thing in a second, but congrats to Miggy. What more can you say?
Yeah, before we get into that, on that Friday night, I actually had to watch the ceremony later. I had to watch it taped later because I was at a minor league baseball game. And as we have said time and time again, this is not a minor league baseball podcast. Luke and I do not track the minor leagues. There are a couple of different great guys who do that in Tigers land, and so go listen to their shows, go follow them. But that being said, I was watching the Lansing Lugnuts versus the West Michigan Whitecaps, and I do have to, I've said it before, I'll say it again. My first true baseball love is probably the Lansing Lugnuts, who came to Lansing in 1996. It is the 25th anniversary season. They were a Royals affiliate at the time. They have then been a Cubs affiliate. They were most recently the Blue Jays, and then in the realignment, they are now the Oakland Athletics. Looked it up, actually. The last time I was at a Lugnuts game before Friday night, on the roster were one Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Oh, wow.
So nice to see those guys really develop and pan out. But shout out to a friend of the pod, Jesse Goldberg Strasler, who rolled out the red carpet for me, took me up into the press box, and where I got to meet Dan Hasty, or as I called him in the pre-record, Tasty Dan Hasty, which is really, if he doesn't start using that, I mean, he's at that Dan Hasty, but I think at Tasty Dan Hasty might, really up the followers.
Yeah.
Great conversations with those guys. And great to meet them and see a lot of these younger prospects in person, including what people are suggesting might be Daniel Tiger should be the nickname for one Daniel Cabrera, who hit a grand slam on Friday night, and just really great stuff to see some of those guys that have been a little bit less covered because they're currently either just moved up into West Michigan or have spent most of the year in Lakeland. Obviously, the big minor league news has been mostly Torkelson and Green related, but those guys looking good, looks good. The future of the franchise still strong. There's some guys down there that certainly have developing to do, but it was nice to see him play. And there's a couple of future stars for the Oakland Athletics that our friend Tom will be happy to see. One Austin Beck being one particularly impressive guy on Friday.
Yeah, that's really cool. You said it perfectly. We're not a minor league podcast. Go do your research and find the people who are there way better than we ever could be. The one thing that is really kind of cool that you get to see that you'll maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you may see a guy like Daniel. You will see a guy like Daniel Cabrera, for the Tigers if all goes well, and you get to think back to this. So that's really cool. I wish sometimes I did make more of an effort to go see minor league games. I don't know why I don't. It's probably because it's like the stigma, like, oh, it's minor league, it's not professional. But like that's ridiculous. Like they are incredibly fun games. They're usually a lot more affordable games to attend. There's usually some sort of like $1 hot dog promotion the night that you go. So I need to do better at giving minor league baseball more of a chance. Not that again that I like discourage it or don't like it. I just don't ever make an effort to go see it. And when I'm down in Florida, I know we've got the Fort Myers, I think like the Mighty Muscles or something like that is their name. They used to be the Fort Myers Miracle. They're like 40 minutes away from me, so I have zero excuses. I just need to do better. I'm going to next year.
And that's going to be a goal. On the affordability comment, like we were now Jackson Park, formerly Cooley Law School Stadium, formerly Oldsmobile Park. Is built very similar to Comerica in that there's that tunnel right behind home plate that is like directly behind. And we were essentially at like the seats were the top of that tunnel.
Oh, nice.
Right behind home plate. And it cost $13.50 a person.
That's awesome.
To sit there, which when I can't get Yankees tickets for that price. And when I get them for, $16, I'm sitting basically at my apartment.
Yep.
And prices at Comerica slightly better, but still you're not sitting behind home plate for $13.50. Exactly. That's very fair. Speaking of minors real quick, just kind of some minor league news and whatnot. The big one, obviously, Torque, Riley Green, they got the promotion to AAA. So that's pretty cool. It's exciting. And I know there's some, I know Ryan also got the promotion as well. So it was kind of like the three of them went up at the same time. And I think what's interesting about him at shortstop is it's kind of one of those names that has flown under the radar. I'll be the first of it. Even when they called him up, I was like, oh yeah, I think I've kind of heard of this guy, but I don't really know much about him. So that's cool.
Shortstop of the future, I have no freaking clue. I still say let's go out and sign a shortstop this offseason. Carlos Correa doesn't want to play for the Astros anymore. I think we could gladly use him in Detroit. But it's just cool in general to see that a lot of these minor leaguers finally getting the call up. And I think now this will be a big offseason news story to track as we get ready for the 22 season. Do Torque and or Green or both, one or the other, who knows, make the team out of camp. Riley Green seems to be absolute mashing right now in Toledo. Spencer Torkelson, from everything I've heard, has been doing pretty well himself. I think a lot will depend on how they finish the entirety of this kind of AAA call-up. It'll definitely be a shorter stint than they're probably at Erie and AA. But, if they finish hot and they have a good spring training, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I was surprised that they even kind of got the call-up just because I know the season is kind of starting to dwindle, if I'm not mistaken. But you know what? They got it. They're making the most of it, and let's see how camp goes. But I think we could potentially see that next year, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm going to call an audible here, Luke. We had really originally talked about really kind of diving into Miggy in the first part of the show.
Yes.
But I think that the way our conversation is trending, let's continue on this line of looking at next year, looking at this kind of trajectory up, and then we'll do Miggy in the second half of the show.
Yes, perfect.
But to that point, obviously there's a lot of people that are concerned, and I think rightfully so, that management may look at a guy like Ryan and be like, "Oh, look, we have a shortstop right here." I don't share those concerns. I understand those concerns. I think that it's pretty clear that we need to get a free agent shortstop, we can't rely, especially with the news that we'll talk about when we talk about Miggy, that Miggy is going to be done at the end of his current contract. And so I think that that adds some urgency to some of the goings on, because I do think that as a whole, the organization wants to get a World Series before Miggy's contract is done. And so I think that, and the stars seem to be aligning for Carlos Correa to come to Detroit, with both just the way in which AJ is talking, the way in which the team is performing. Obviously, a couple disappointing losses, but to a very good Toronto Blue Jays team over the weekend. But the fire quote from AJ,
that was awesome.
We're gonna start a winning culture, and if you want to be a part of it, you'll come. If you don't, we'll beat you. And so I think that's starting to form. Obviously, he and Carlos Correa have a great relationship, a great history together. Why wouldn't he want to come here? I think the only question would become if another team lays out a ton of money that the Tigers are unwilling to match, then maybe that's the situation where he doesn't come here. I'm also a little thankful that Carlos Correa is feeling more like a possibility, because I was concerned that Javi Baez might be the option. And now also I think that there have now become some things that tend to scare teams like the Tigers away. When you talk about guys with some offish, on-ish field personality issues. Now, I love Javi Baez in Major League Baseball. I love to watch his highlights. I'm always glad he plays for a different team, though.
Let's get into that real quick. I'm going to call an audible on your audible. What do we think about this? And we're not a Mets podcast either, but what do you think about this whole Mets thing? Now the fans boo the Mets. Now the Mets players, when they do something well, are booing the fans in response. I tweeted something out last night, and I said, first of all, I think the last night when I checked the ratio is Javi Baez 151 strikeouts to 18 walks. So just let's take the whole controversy thing that's going on right now. I'm not going to say beggars can't be choosers. So in a world where Javi Baez, if he were to come to us, I'd be like, okay, let's make the best out of this thing. With all due respect to Zach Short and Nico Goodrum, Javi Baez is probably better than both of those guys combined. So if that were to happen in some, potentially not too insanely far fantasy, great. I'll take it and we'll make the best of it. I don't want that. I would much rather have Carlos Correa. I would much rather have Story. I would much rather go down even maybe a guy like a Marcus Semien, who I did not realize had 32 home runs with the Blue Jays until this weekend. What a season he's having. So any of those guys I would take over Javi. But this whole thing with the Mets and the boo, it just to me, it's like maybe focus on winning games rather than retaliating against your fans. I get it. Nobody wants to be booed. If I was a professional athlete and I was booed constantly or, fairly frequently, I'd be like, this is getting annoying. But at the end of the day, too, am I going to lose a lot of sleep over these millionaires who can't take a little heat from the crowd because they're pissed off at their team for underperforming? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. And also, as we say all the time, the Mets are Metsing it up. We all knew this was going to happen at some point or the other. It's just a complete dumpster fire right now with the New York Mets. It's just the fans hate the Mets hate the fans. Yep. Ownership tweets stuff every now. It's a garbage fire.
This is really like the most Mets story that could ever occur. In that there's no reason why the Mets aren't winning the NL East except for the fact that they can't get their crap together to save their lives. And then on the particularly Javi Baez, I think he's a guy like as an acquisition for the Mets. I think what they're learning is and demonstrating for all of us is that Javi Baez is the guy who's going to sell a lot of jerseys for you because he does a lot of exciting things, but he's not going to win a championship for you because he swings and misses.
Yeah.
And doesn't know how to get on base.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Javi Baez, he's a good baseball player. I'm not saying he's like a turd. Like he's a very good baseball player. I think he has very good defensive skills. I think if he could learn the strike zone, I think he could be from a good baseball player to a great baseball player. But it's just hilarious to me. It's like, Javi, rather than, giving thumbs down to your own fans, maybe learn the strike zone and you can cut down on some of the 151 to 18. That is just insane to me. That is absolutely insane. I get it when he connects the ball, he probably could hit it to the moon, but it's like, at what cost? And again, if some crazy hypothetical happens where if he comes to Detroit, I'll welcome him, as Creed would say, with arms wide open. But I would much rather have Carlos Correa and or Story. That's right. But you didn't think you were going to get a Creed reference.
That was great.
I do what we took a week off. I got
any Creed reference. I was expecting more a Creed from The Office reference, not Creed the band. I don't think I ever would have said, what's going to happen. And if anybody was going to make it, I thought it would be me before it was you.
Creed was definitely more your time. But by the time Creed got to my generation, it was definitely kind of like the butt of the joke. Your generation, it was kind of like, these guys aren't half bad.
Yeah, we also like Nickelback. So
it's all right. I grew up on the generation of like Baha Men, so that was my first concert. Anyways, let's get back on track here. But yeah, I get what you're going for.
Yeah, and so that the future is looking exciting, and there was also the MLB.com article that we tweeted out from the account earlier this week, maybe even yesterday or Saturday, that the team is closer to contention than a lot of people think they are, and I would definitely agree with that. I hesitatingly say that if they even with like just the acquisition of a shortstop, they could potentially compete for the Central next year. Obviously, I think we want to see them add one or two other big bats into the lineup. But we're not looking at a roster that we need to plug a ton of holes. There's, one or two things that we need. Even in the, like, if nothing changes on the pitching staff, I think we're in fine shape.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of go down this hypothetical road a little bit, because I do think there are holes to fill out. Obviously, shortstop is the number one concern, but beyond that, I do think there are some pretty pressing issues that need to be addressed immediately. I would say another middle reliever or two would be great. Or if they just went out and got one like solid back into the bullpen guy, then you have Soto, Cisnero, Fulmer, Funkhauser, and then whoever the new mystery man would be that would join the bullpen. I think that could be. Then you've got five pretty solid pitchers. I know sometimes, Cisnero and Soto are a little bit wild. I think Funkhauser, in my opinion right now, I think Funkhauser is the most reliable reliever in the Tigers bullpen. Fulmer, if he could just stay healthy, I think is great too. So overall, the Tigers bullpen it's in better shape going into this offseason than it has been in recent years. But I think one or two more relievers would really kind of solidify things. A bat in the outfield would be good. And then I think also another starting pitcher. I'm just going to say it. I want Justin Verlander. I don't need any more Jose Ureñas. I want Justin Verlander. And I think that we're kind of done going into this offseason getting guys like Jose Ureña or Julio Teheran or Matt Moore or Ivan Nova. I think kind of those quote-unquote innings eaters I think we're kind of done with that. I hope, because you have going into the next year, Mize, Tarek, Matt Manning, Matthew Boyd. Looks like Spencer Trimble will probably miss most of 22, which really sucks. So, you go out and get a guy like a Verlander to kind of fill that spot. That would be awesome. Or even if it's not Verlander, someone else, that's legit in the sense that they're not that kind of typical innings eater.
And it feels weird to say this, and obviously I've been also a huge cheerleader on the bring JV back to Detroit fan, but he's coming off of Tommy John. Who knows what his stuff is going to look like?
Yeah,
maybe Justin Verlander is a quasi equivalent to an innings eater at this point in his career. But he's an innings eater that knows how to pitch when he's in trouble, who knows how to do all the things that are mental way more than they are physical. So like maybe the velocity is not the same, but he knows how to pitch in tight situations when the velocity isn't there for him. Like in all of those spots, he knows how to win games as a pitcher. And so even if JV coming off of Tommy John surgery and being much older than he was the last time he was in Detroit, is not the same Justin Verlander, that's still a massive improvement over a Jose Urena.
Yep, absolutely. And also one other huge factor, if JV were to come to Detroit, imagine Justin Verlander getting to work and kind of mentor with guys like Mize, Skubal, and Manning. I mean, that would just be huge. I'll attribute that to, hopefully, I really want Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson to make the club, right out of camp, or even just sometime next year, because then they can have some time with Miggy. I mean, imagine if you're a pitcher getting to be mentored by Justin Verlander, or if you're a hitter getting to be mentored by Miguel Cabrera. I mean, those are two pretty good people to look up to and go to for advice. So I think that would pay dividends as well if they were to get JV back, aside from the fact that I think he can still be a huge beneficiary to have in our pitching rotation. He would be a great factor. But yeah, I think the outfield's interesting too, because I was thinking about this during yesterday's game, and I think MLB.com posted an article in regards to Daz Cameron, how now he's going to have to kind of fight for his stay in Detroit. I know it's been kind of Daz has had only quite a few opportunities, only really had a handful. He's also had some injuries he's had to overcome. But you look at the outfield right now, it's crowded. Robbie Grossman, Derek Hill, Akil Baddoo, Victor Reyes. You've got a guy like Riley Green, coming down the line here pretty soon. I mean, it's a crowded outfield. I know Eric Haas has played some left field even, because they want to keep his bat in the lineup. Not saying he's going to be the everyday left fielder moving forward, but you'll probably expect him, though, I would imagine, more so to probably stay at the catching position, given the fact of the news that Jake Rogers is probably going to be shut down for the rest of the season. But again, just, and even if you throw Daz into that adds another outfielder. And then if they go out and get someone in free agency. So the outfield competition for the Tigers, I think, is really going to, it's going to be interesting to kind of monitor this offseason into camp next year. You can only really play 3 of them. Or if you're like the Blue Jays yesterday, when Robbie Grossman was up to bat, they tried 4 outfielders. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see too. But I wouldn't mind getting another decent outfield bat this offseason too, just to kind of really solidify that lineup even further. If you get a premier shortstop like a Trevor Story or a Javi Baez, and you go out there and get a solid outfield bat, this lineup, I think, becomes very intriguing. And you still got Miggy, who's productive. Akil Baddoo, still that rookie sensation. Scopey's going to be what Scopey is. Candelario's been real solid. Just, it really starts to kind of fill out when you look at that lineup. They can go out and get those, that bat or two to kind of round things out.
Yeah, I mean, and all of that feels really attainable. That's the sort of, I mean, I think if we go back to this time last year, looking at the lineup and be like, oh boy, I don't know. What do we do? Like, we got to spend money, but we got to get these guys up here, and the puzzle felt impossible, and it doesn't feel impossible anymore. It feels entirely attainable that they should be competing for the Central next year. I don't know that I feel like ready to say that, if they make these moves, there's no reason they shouldn't win it. They should be competing for the Central, and they should definitely be competing for a World Series by the time Miggy's contract is up in 23.
I do hope you're right. And you mentioned this earlier, and this is going to really put kind of a lot of pressure on the front office. I hope they give Miggy a chance to be around a team that is going to win. This team this year has been a lot of fun to watch. They're definitely much more improved than last season. There's still a lot of issues that we've talked about over the course of this year. But I don't want Miggy to have to be around a team like this for 2 more years. This was a great growing season. There is the potential they could still finish 500 at this point. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're not mathematically out of it yet. But you really want this next year or two. Give Miggy a chance to get a good send off, and it would be great because I think at the end of his second year, that is his 20th year in the league. That's a great number to end on.
Mm-hmm.
I texted you this the day he made that announcement that he's going to do two more, and then that's it. How cool of a story would it be? You win a World Series your first year in the major leagues, and you win a World Series in your final year in the major leagues. It's like a Cinderella story. So I hope it happens. Only time will tell with that. We still got 2 more years to get through, but I don't want to give Al Avila and Chris Ilitch too much credit because I still think they've still got some explaining to do. But I have a confident feeling going into this offseason that they know, okay, if we don't spend money, I think people are going to I think we're going to have a mutiny on our hands. I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't want to give them too much credit. I don't want to put too much hope into the hands of Chris Ilitch and Al Avila, but I have a good feeling in the pit of my stomach right now that we're going to see some stuff that is exciting. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of transition into the ad break. We'll come back. We'll talk more Miggy, and we'll talk sort of the rest of the calendar as we look ahead to the rest of the year. We'll be right back.
Perfect. Yep.
We are back on the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. We're going to talk Miggy in the second half of the show here, and we're also going to take a look at the rest of the calendar the rest of the way. So I think, Luke, so we end on a really nice positive note. Let's save our Miggy appreciation for the very end.
Yep.
And let's talk about kind of where things stand. You just counted the record in August as of recording.
As of recording today. Now we are recording Monday afternoon. The Twins makeup game is about to begin here in about a half hour. So prior to that, the Tigers are 12-12 in the month of August. They have 2 games remaining. So pretty much it's simple. Win 1 game and you're going to finish 500 at least. If you win 2, you're going to finish a game over. And if you don't win either, you're going to finish 2 under. So Tigers just got to win a game and they can continue that little nice streak they've had of 500 or better since May. So just get
Which
that.
There's only according to the MLB.com article, there were only 4 other teams that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
The Blue Jays, I think, being one of them. I can't remember the other 3 right now, but that just kind of continues to add to the argument that this team is more ready to win than we might have anticipated that they would be at this point in the year.
Yeah, it's really a bummer. I hate to think about the past too much. It's just such a shame with that month of April that they had. I mean, going, I think it was like 9-24, 25, something like that. It was just so bad. So bad. But or whatever it was from April, that first week of May. And then it was I don't even remember when the turning point was. All I remember is Turnbull threw the no-hitter in May. And then from there, in my eyes, things seemed to just kind of get better and better as months went on. They started playing better baseball for the most part. So they're 12-12. They've got a makeup game today against the Minnesota Twins. You're going to get to see Casey Mize versus pitching for the Twins today. Ober, O-B-E-R. I don't know. The Twins have no pitching, so let's hope the Tigers can take advantage of that. Because although it was a good series this past weekend with the Toronto Blue Jays, very low-scoring ball games. And I think real quick, because we really didn't talk about this past weekend series, I was really impressed with the Tigers. It's a bummer that they couldn't take at least 2 of 3. I thought they were going to win that extra innings game on Saturday. But they just, the Twins are a really good baseball team, and it's surprising to me that I think they are a really good team, and they may not even make the playoffs right now. So they have good pitching. They have a great lineup. So I don't know where the disconnect is. If it's maybe something with coaches, if it's just something where they've got some bad luck along the way, maybe the schedule wasn't in their favor. I don't know. But it's shocking to me that a team as good as the Toronto Blue Jays may get gypped out of the playoffs. only time will tell. They could still make it in, but just kind of something to keep on. But yeah, again, shout out to the Tigers. I thought they played really well this weekend against the Toronto Blue Jays. So got to give credit where credit is due. I thought they pitched and played good defense. Hitting was kind of what it was, but it was a lot of pitcher's duels. So it's what it is. But yeah, so just kind of looking at the remainder of the season, we have the one makeup game today against Minnesota, and then tomorrow is the final game of the month of August. The Oakland A's come to town for 3. Then looking at the month of September, I tweeted this out last night. The month of July, if you guys remember, for the Tigers was a very, very favorable matchup on paper. I think they only ended up leaving like a couple games over 500, so that still was a little bit underwhelming. But not to be negative, they finished over 500. They just, were playing some teams that weren't as good as they were, at least on paper. The month of September is a completely different story. They've got a lot of good teams coming to town, and they're playing a lot of good teams on the road. We've got Oakland, Cincinnati, both good baseball teams. Pittsburgh, meh. Tampa Bay, very good. Milwaukee, very good. Tampa Bay again, 4 games on the road against Tampa at the end of September. I can't believe we got 7 games against the Rays in the month of September. That's a tough day at the office. 3 against the White Sox. We obviously know they're very good. We get the Royals, meh. Minnesota, meh. And then we finish the season in Chicago in October, at Chicago in October, I should say, against the White Sox. So Tigers are going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have their work cut out for them. If we're still going along with this quest to 500, which I don't know, I think that sweep at the hands of the Angels a couple weeks ago, I think that kind of solidified it for me. It's going to be real tough to kind of rebound from that. But, I think they need to win 19 games to finish 500 to get to themselves that 81 win mark, which would put them at 81-81, which would be a 500 season. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't think so. I don't think it is. I know we've kind of doubted them all season. It seems like at times, but that's a decent amount of wins to get against a lot of really good teams. They weren't playing the Rays 7 times. They didn't have a series against Cincinnati or that 2 against Milwaukee, and then still just looking at it, that's I believe 6 more games against the White Sox. Maybe I don't know. It's a really tough schedule for the remainder.
It's hard to find 19 wins in this cluster of games. That I think, and it just is the nature of the way the schedule shook out. They didn't take advantage of some opportunities that they had, and obviously, if they hadn't started the season as poorly as they did, then this would be a different story. They wouldn't need to come up with that large amount of wins here to kind of make up that deficit. But all that being said, beginning of the year, we said this is 72, 73. 74 win team, and that seems like right about where we're going to end up. I would think it does feel possible for them to end up north of 75 wins this year.
Absolutely.
That universe feels possible, but 80-81 is going to be a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think if I'm thinking my Tigers memory bank here on the fly, the last time the Tigers had a season where they had more than 64 wins, I believe was in 2016. So they're definitely going to surpass that this year, which is great. And I think you are right. I think we're going to probably see, and I had to go back to that predictions episode. I think I was probably like 70, 71, maybe 72. I think I'm going to bump that up a little bit and say it could be somewhere from 72 to 75. I think that is definitely a possibility. It's just, again, it's real hard to get 19 wins against teams like the A's, the Reds, the Brewers, the White Sox, and the Tampa Bay Rays. That is a really tough way to end your season. Yeah. But you know what? To their credit, to the Tigers' credit, they have shown up for the most part against a lot of these teams. I think games against the Mariners, games against the Red Sox, games against the Astros, the Yankees, they've stepped up. Still can't beat Cleveland and for whatever reason the LA Angels, but that's for another episode. But I think maybe we are being a little bit unfair on them because they have really, for the most part, played well against these better teams this season. So with the exclusion of the month of April, where everything was just a train wreck. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to hold my breath, but if it does happen, I'll be like, cool, this is cool.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a kind of a great moment when we get to there. I mean, again, I have to keep reminding myself that if at the beginning of this season, even as late as, May 1st, if you told me this is what we would be talking about at the end of the year, I would have, one, not believed you, and two, been thrilled. I would have been like, no way are we talking about them being competitive next season, like potentially winning a World Series in the final year of Miggy's contract. Like, those were dreams, but now they feel possible.
Yeah.
As every sports fan knows, it's the hope that'll kill you, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, that's just the most real thing I've ever heard. Hope will kill you. I mean, as a Tigers Lions fan to you, and as a Tigers Bears fan to me, it's just brutal. Hope is a real bastard sometimes. But
now,
I
Luke,
think it'll be
yeah.
Go
ahead. I insist.
The one thing I was just going to say real quick was, what's funny to think this team really has come a long way. And I don't want to do like a full, season in review, because we'll say that for when the season actually ends. But it is funny to me. I was watching the game yesterday. I was like, man, there was a point in time that this team had Wilson Ramos and Nomar Mazara on it. And that honestly feels like a long, long time ago. But you talk about how crappy of a start they got off to in April. It was so bad. It was so. There was a point in time in April I was like, oh my God, are they going to be worse than the 2019 Tigers? I at a point in time legitimately thought they wouldn't win 40 games. Now, I will say this was a good learning moment for me, because I've watched the Arizona Diamondbacks this season and the Baltimore Orioles, and those teams are horrendous. Those teams are absolutely horrendous, but yet they have found a way to surpass the 40 wins, I believe, at this point, or they will by the end of the season. So to say a team will not win 40 games, that's a pretty bold claim. But didn't like the 03 Tigers do that? I thought they only won like 39 or 38, something like that. It was like right around 40.
They weren't quite the worst team in baseball history, but they're
damn near close.
Very, very close.
And then the 19 Tigers gave them a run for their money, because they only won 47. So anyways, that's all negative in the past. Let's talk positive stuff. Let's talk
baseball. One quick second though, before we get out of this, I just want to, because I think it's so interesting, because I think about like broadcast teams and the hate that they get from like I feel like every fan base, you either really love your broadcast team or you really hate them. Right now, the Tigers really hate our TV broadcast team. But then similarly, like watching your team, because of the day in, day out nature of baseball, because of the way that most games are regionally broadcast, there's like a national game a week, maybe two, that are of any interest. And as opposed to the NFL, where you're probably seeing a couple of other games in the week as you watch, if you're watching the NFL. So if your team feels terrible to you, you have other things that you can like compare them to. But like, I would say the majority of baseball fans are not also then watching the Diamondbacks,
exactly,
the Orioles, and seeing what a bad baseball team looks like.
I don't know like what the exact national broadcast schedules for the MLB. I used to know back in the day. I used to always watch like the Saturday Fox game, the Sunday game on TBS. I don't even know if they do those anymore. There was like Sunday night baseball, Monday night baseball, Wednesday night baseball. I don't even know like what they all do. I pretty much just watch the Tigers, and then if I'm feeling up to it, I'll maybe check in on a couple games here and there. But with football, I mean, looking at it that way, you said it perfect. That was a great kind of comparison. You got Thursday night football, you have the Sunday noon game, the Sunday afternoon game, Sunday night football, and then Monday night football. And for the most part, everybody will watch those 5 games. Sometimes Thursday night football is like the redheaded stepchild, where people are kind of like, I don't really need to watch Dolphins Browns tonight, but maybe some other time. But I mean, it's a great point. We don't really see how other teams place poorly because of they're in we're kind of in our own bubble, so to speak. Like, I really don't care what's going on in the NL West too much. I mean, I'll keep an eye on it, but how the Rockies are playing really doesn't affect me when I'm trying to sleep at night. I want to know how the Tigers are doing and what's going on in the AL Central, because that's the division, that we're in.
Yeah, if you asked me to tell you who the division leaders in the National League were and like how far they're doing, I think I might be able to do it, but I would definitely be guessing.
It's a pretty good show right now.
It's not something that I know cold.
Yeah.
It's just you live in that bubble, as opposed to like in the middle of NFL season. And I'm not a diehard NFL fan. I'm a fairly casual NFL viewer, but I feel like I know what the playoff picture looks like.
Yeah,
probably better than I do on the National League side.
Yeah.
Of baseball. Now, the American League side, I have a really good sense of what the playoff picture looks like because I'm constantly checking that as a Tigers fan.
Yep.
Even though they're 12 and a half games out of the wild card right now, I'm still like, just checking in, seeing if we've made
just
up
want to see
ground.
maybe if anything happened, did anyone? I get you. No, it's a fair point. That's a good off-season episode. Like being in your team's bubble, does it then kind of affect you being a fan of baseball in general? For me, I know it doesn't, because I will watch other games when I feel like it. I'm just not, when I get off work, I sometimes am planning my nights around watching a Tigers game. The same cannot be said for the Cincinnati Reds. It's like, oh, maybe I'll watch a Reds game. I'll see it. Maybe I'll watch Nick taking that bat or two. But like, it's not my days at playing around. That's because those are who we root for. I'm sure if you asked a Reds fan, it would be the same thing, just vice versa. They're not really checking up on us too much. So
yeah, exactly.
It's an interesting conversation for down the road.
Yeah, let's talk Miggy as we close this out, so we can both get out of here and watch this afternoon's game as we record right before. I mean, it is one of those things that it was just magical that it happened. I mean, I think that now we're looking at 3,000 hits. There's something about 3,000 hits that doesn't. Maybe it's just because he's still like 40-ish away, and we're probably not going to see it at the end of this season. But it doesn't feel, all year. It's just been like, how close is he getting? Is he making that step? This felt like the bigger hurdle. And I think maybe it's because we've also seen his power decline
exactly
over the past few years. And so being able to see him get there, disappointing that he couldn't get there at home, but he got there in Toronto, and those fans gave him everything they had to cheer for him. And so just like beautifully well done all around by everybody. I think the broadcast teams have done a nice job of handling it and tracking it. And I just realized now I have listened to Dan Dickerson's call. I've watched video with Dan's call over top, and with but I have not actually heard Shep's call of the 500th home run.
It was fine. Kind of going back real quick, I know we want to really make this about Miggy here towards the tail end. This is a real slippery slope. Obviously, there's been some broadcast shakeup. Jack Morris has since been removed from the broadcast team from a few weeks ago. For what it's worth, I think, and just completely, just letting that situation be what it is, however that gets handled is above our pay grade. I think Matt Shepard is better when Jack Morris isn't there. And I actually think Shep is pretty solid for the play-by-play. Then I don't know, it's just Jack just wasn't doing it for me. So I've enjoyed Matt Shepard and Craig Monroe more so lately. So maybe it sticks around, maybe it doesn't. I mean, I'm not again too concerned about that right now, but just for what it's worth, that made me think of kind of where they're currently at with the broadcast team.
And I think I've said it before on the show that like when I've listened to on the radio and Simo's been sat in with Dan there, I've enjoyed Simo on the radio quite a bit, and I've also been enjoying it in the booth. So I think that
absolutely.
Whatever happens in the off season as they reevaluate their broadcast teams, my hope is that Simo has a seat. And either on the radio or on TV.
Absolutely. I thought Shep's call was fine for Miggy's 500th. It was a cool thing. Look, I'm going to pull back the curtain here. We kind of were jokingly tweeting about it when it actually happened the Sunday of. I didn't get to see the 500 home run because I was on vacation. When the 500 home run happened, I was laying in a pool at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort, soaking in some sun and trying to beat the heat in a nice, cool pool on a hot Sunday afternoon in Orlando, Florida. I was vacationing with my father, and he came down and broke the news to me, and I specifically told him right before I went to the pool, I was like, I'm not going to bring my phone. I don't really need to. I'm only going to be there for like a half hour, an hour. I had a nice cool drink in my hand. I was enjoying my vacation. And about 10 minutes into my pool stay, he came down and just went. And I went, and I'm pretty sure I went, oh, you got to be bleeping me, to quote Hawk Harrelson. But, more like the dog crap rod, if you get what I'm going for here. But yeah, so I was just like, damn, I can't believe I missed it. So, of course, then I was hopping on all the social medias and checking it out. Yeah, I thought Chef's call was fine. It was just great to see. As you and I told each other, because I think you said you were driving when it happened. You were flying or something?
I had just gotten in the car after being picked up by my sister and her husband from flying into Grand Rapids. And so I also did not hear it live. I did not see it live. I was watching the MLB app Gamecast of his at bat, and then it went blue and it said in play runs. And there was nobody on, and I like yelled, "In play, runs!" He did it.
Yeah.
So at least that was my call of the 500th home run. It was probably ranked third of the three.
Yeah. Yeah. You at least you had some, like, you were kind of keeping up with it current. I was totally blind. I was in vacation mode, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind for the day. But what we both told each other is we just can't miss 3,000. Whatever we got to do, whatever alerts we got to set, can't miss 3,000. But for Miggy, it was great. I agree with what you said kind of earlier when we began this discussion. I'm not worried about 3,000 hits. I was worried about 500. And I know realistically, it's like, what were you worried for? He's under contract for 2 more years. He only need, I think it was 13 home runs going into the season, something along those lines. So realistically, what were we worried for? We knew he was going to get it. But, there were some times this season, and as we've just seen in the last couple of years, his power is not there like it was 4 or 5 years ago. So I think at times, I'm not going to say it was a valid concern, but definitely a concern that, look, when July rolled around, I think he only had like 1 home run or something like that. Maybe it was 2. It was definitely a lower number. I was like, boy, is he going to get there this season? Or like, we're going to be talking about this again come early April. And then he went on kind of a nice little road tear, had a couple at home, and the rest is history. So I'm happy for Miguel. He's the best.
Part of that too, like just if in some weird circumstance, Miguel Cabrera had ended his career at 499 home runs and 2,999 hits, I still think he's the greatest hitter in Tigers history. But like for him and for his legacy, you wanted to see him like clear 500 easy. And I think that if he had somehow like ended this year at like 2,997 hits and still 3 home runs from it, you'd be like, oh no. Like it would have felt incorrect or a little bit tarnishing if he had, and this feels weird to say, if he'd gotten to 3,000 hits before he got to 500 home runs. And I think that's just because like as a hitter, I think of Miguel Cabrera as a big home run guy. As like, here he comes to the plate in the big moment, out of the park, Tigers win. And not as a doubles and triples guy. And so that to me, this order feels right for the legacy. So it's nice to see. And when he gets to 3,000, then no one can argue with me that he's not the greatest hitter in Tigers history, and one of the best to ever play the game.
Well, I think I agree with you both of them. I think he's by far the best hitter in Tigers history. No disrespect to some of the guys like Tram or the great Al Kaline, but I just think Miggy
or Tyrus Raymond Cobb.
Ty Cobb. I don't care if Ty Cobb hates me. I think Ty Cobb's kind of a douche. So
actually, probably good if Ty Cobb hates you. You're probably
on the
right side of history. Ty Cobb dislikes you.
Doing something right. All right, cool. I'll take that. Pat myself on the back. But yeah, I think Miggy, best Tigers hitter in the history of the franchise. One of the best hitters, I think, in the history of Major League Baseball. It's just awesome. We know it's going to happen. It's great. What I'm curious to see is what will his 3,000 hit be? That's going to be kind of a fun discussion to get to, because again, it could potentially happen at the end of this season. He would have to go on some sort of insane tear. And as we just pointed out a little while ago, Tigers are going to be facing a lot more difficult pitching staffs coming their way in the month of September. but maybe he'll rise to the occasion. And if not, it's gonna. If not, get your tickets now for some early cold baseball in April in Detroit. I've already thought to myself, depending where he is at the end of the season, if he doesn't get to 3,000, kind of looking at the schedule for the early part of next year. Do I want to fly into Detroit necessarily in the beginning of April when it's going to be potentially 20 degrees and snowing and leaving sunny Naples, Florida? No, I don't, but this is what I'll do for the team if I have to.
Yeah, exactly. And like on that note, as we look ahead on the calendar, those of you that if you have somehow missed this news, the celebration for Miggy at Comerica is on September 24th. Obviously, they did the little ceremony to change the sign over to 500, but it is a Miggy celebration day on September 24th against the Kansas City Royals at 7:10 p.m. Also, just a quick note, they're giving away hoodies on the 10th, Detroit Roots hoodie. If anybody doesn't want their hoodie and wants to send it to me
or me
and Luke, if anybody wants to snag a couple of hoodies for Luke and Alex, we'd love you forever. You'll be
slide
a permanent friend
DMs.
of the pod.
Yep. Slide into those DMs.
We will love it. I was just home, but I almost looked up flights back. I was like, no, I can't spend I can't spend flight and a ticket to get a hoodie that I could probably.
I'd say save your money. We should really consider that in April, depending where our lives are at and where Miggy is at in regards to the 3,000 chase. But that would be fun to see. Now that would be a pretty cool moment to see him get that hit, if you're especially to do it at home. So we'll see. I think also real quick, going to the September 24th thing, I thought I read that tickets depending where you sit in select areas of the ballpark are also going to be $24.
Yes, I believe that is correct. That they do have $24 tickets to.
Celebrate. I don't know if you're going to get to sit behind home plate for $24. I'm going to lean more towards no on that. But the fact that they're kind of giving away that discount, that thing for fans to go and enjoy, it's awesome. And pack the crowd for Miggy. I mean, the man deserves it. He's put a lot of years into this team, and give him a standing O because he rightfully has earned it.
I couldn't say it better myself, Luke, and I think that's where we should end it tonight.
Perfect.
All right, everybody. We will be here through the rest of the season into the off season, always talking Tigers, and it's getting more and more exciting and easy to talk Tigers as this team keeps getting better. So keep tuning in. Find us on social at @Mish_Trumbull on Twitter. We're pretty heavily active there. Nothing like a Luke rant in the middle of a game coming out on the Twitter feed. So make sure you check that out, and we will see you next time. Luke, have a great one.
See you, buddy. Have a good week.